In this video, we explore the remarkable triumphs of White Christ, a game theory strategy inspired by the wise man Oscar Wilde called White Christ. First, we tested White Christ in the same setting as Axelrod's famous first tournament, where strategies like tit for tat competed. White Christ didn't just win, it outperformed all of them, including Axelrod's original winner, tit for tat. After this decisive victory, we pushed White Christ further by holding a series of unique tournaments to see just how superior it really is. In these tournaments, White Christ gave its opponents a growing advantage. In each tournament, it started with one more unconditional cooperative action than before. In the first series of tournaments I ran, White Christ managed to remain champion even when granting 32 unconditional cooperations at the start. This was already an impressive feat. However, in the second series of tournaments, White Christ went even further, winning the tournament while granting up to 100 initial cooperations. This means that for half of the 200 rounds, White Christ gave its opponents the maximum advantage by doing exactly what was best for them, unconditionally cooperating. Only in the second half did White Christ apply its actual strategy. I realize not every tournament plays out the same, as random factors can influence the outcome. Then came the third tournament series, which I recorded via screen capture. This time, White Christ went even further, managing to win while giving a staggering 101 initial cooperations to each opponent. 101, that's more than half of the total moves in the game. Just think about it. Who would dare to play any game, let alone against world-class opponents? And give away the first half of the match by blindly doing whatever benefits the opponent the most? Yet White Christ did just that, and still emerged victorious. If you'd like to run the original code from the White Christ strategy tournament, here's how you can do it for free on Google Colab. Here's how. Open Google Colab. You can find it by searching Google Colab or by going to colab.research.google.com. In the upper left, click on the less than greater than symbol. This will create a new code cell. Copy and paste the code into the newly created cell. We optimize the original by including the line to install Dark data frame at the beginning of the code. This way, all necessary libraries will be installed automatically, so you won't need to manually install anything. The code contains some German text, because that's my native language. Not only are the comments written in German, but some of the printed output will be in German as well. But don't worry. The code itself runs fine, regardless of the language of the comments. Once you've pasted the code, you just need to run it, and the tournament will begin. Next, I conducted a new unique tournament to simulate more real-life conditions. We introduced 10% noise to account for errors and included some of the best real-life inspired strategies. Generous Tit for Tat GTFT, famous for its success in noisy environments. Pavlov win-stay-lose shift, another top strategy for handling noise. Etherly's strategy, which adapts based on the opponent's trustworthiness. Dark Triad, a malicious strategy that deceives its opponents before exploiting them. Once again, White Christ triumphed over these strong competitors. Finally, we ran an evolutionary simulation based on this real-life inspired tournament using the ecological variant, much like Axelrod's original work. The simulation ran for 1 million turns. Before we dive into the detailed breakdown of the evolutionary simulation over 1 million turns, I'd like to point out two important things about the results, which, although exciting, also bring some caution. I will not be publishing the full code used in this unique simulation because it includes the ethically problematic strategy Dark Triad. The behavior of this strategy, which involves deceit and exploitation, is not something I want to encourage or make widely accessible, even though it contributed to interesting dynamics in the simulation. As we've already observed in previous runs, not every simulation plays out the same way. I've repeated the evolutionary simulation several times, and the results varied greatly. While White Christ emerged victorious in the first run, other strategies dominated in different runs, and quite alarmingly, Dark Triad gained a foothold in several of them. This is yet another reason I've chosen not to share the Dark Triad code. It's a stark reminder that such a ruthless strategy can thrive under certain conditions, and it's not something I want to promote. Every evolutionary simulation plays out differently, and it can be unsettling to see that, in some runs, Dark Triad absolutely dominated at the end of 1 million evolutionary steps. However, I can offer some reassurance. Dark Triad, when it realizes that its opponent cannot be easily exploited, behaves much like Pavlov WSLS, which leads to extremely high cooperation. The issue arises if naive individuals, blue-eyed partners, were to appear within this population. They would be swiftly exploited and would likely disappear rapidly. Ultimately, regardless of which strategy becomes dominant in a particular simulation, cooperation prevails in the end. So, while the presence of Dark Triad can be concerning, rest assured that mutual aid is always the final outcome, no matter which strategy emerges victorious. Now, let's look at the exciting phases of the evolutionary process and reflect on what we can learn from each of the strategies involved. Stay tuned for the grand resurrection of White Christ. Evolutionary simulation phases. Early phase. Generous tit for tat and Pavlov WSLS start to gain some ground, while the populations of the other strategies, including Etherly's strategy and Dark Triad, begin to decrease, with Etherly's and Dark Triad's populations shrinking significantly. Phase of shifting dominance. At turn 600, White Christ enjoys a brief peak, reaching 1/3 of the total population. Meanwhile, Dark Triad's population shrinks to about 1/3 of its original size. The joy of White Christ's rise is short-lived. By turn 900, all the good strategies, except Generous Tit for Tat, face steep declines. In contrast, Dark Triad reaches its peak, controlling 1/3 of the total population. But Dark Triad's success is fleeting. Although most of the good strategies continue to struggle, Generous Tit for Tat grows, eventually making up half of the total population. Shortly after, Pavlov WSLS also peaks, reaching around half of the population. Later phase, around turn 10,000, White Christ makes a surprising comeback, dominating the majority of the population. It's a joyous moment. White Christ's resurrection is here. But that joy doesn't last long. Dark Triad peaks again, now holding half of the total population. At this point, most of the good strategies vanish from the plot, at least for now. Thankfully, Generous Tit for Tat bounces back quickly, growing to almost 100% of the total population. Dark Triad's presence fades away, just like the good strategies had earlier. Etherly's strategy also makes a reappearance on the plot. By turn 15,000, Etherly's strategy and Generous Tit for Tat dominate nearly the entire population, with Pavlov WSLS making a return as well. During this phase, Generous Tit for Tat dominates overall, briefly holding nearly 100% of the population and maintaining the largest share throughout this period. Apparent final phase. From turn 15,000 onwards, Pavlov WSLS takes over and is the only strategy visible on the plot. Likely final phase, lasting 97% of the total simulation time. At turn 30,000, White Christ makes its grand resurrection, reappearing and steadily dominating the entire population. White Christ maintains this dominance for the remaining 97% of the simulation time, right up until turn 1 million. The original plot generated by the evolutionary simulation is scaled exponentially, making it harder to fully appreciate the extent of White Christ's dominance. When we switch to a linear plot, As shown here, it becomes much clearer that White Christ completely dominated from turn 30,000 all the way up to 1 million, an astonishing 97% of the total time. Given this consistent performance, I believe that if we extended the simulation even further, say to 1 billion turns, White Christ would continue its victorious streak. Now we break down White Christ, followed by Generous Tit for Tat, Pavlov, Win, Stay, Lose Shift, Etherly's Strategy, and Dark Triad. Learn what makes each strategy tick and what valuable lessons we can take away. White Christ's victory, incorporating forgiveness and adaptability, is one for the ages. White Christ. Special features. White Christ incorporates the strengths of other good strategies such as forgiveness, adaptability, and a focus on recent actions. Inspired by a wise thinker whom Oscar Wilde referred to as the White Christ, as well as strategies from Axelrod's second tournament such as Etherly's, White's, and Champion strategy. White Christ is flexible, adjusting its behavior based on the opponent's most recent actions. However, it never adapts its core strategy. Forgiveness and trust-building remain central. The adaptation lies in how recent behavior is weighted more heavily, accounting for the fact that people can change whether for better or worse. What we can learn. White Christ teaches us that long-term success comes from maintaining forgiveness and trust, but also from staying aware of recent behavior. It's not about abandoning core values, but about recognizing that people can change and adjusting accordingly to stay resilient in various situations. Generous Tit for Tat, GTFT. Special features. GTFT is a cooperative strategy that mimics the opponent's previous move but includes forgiveness. Unlike the classic tit for tat, it sometimes forgives defections, preventing it from getting stuck in endless retaliation cycles. This makes it particularly powerful in noisy environments where errors are common. What we can learn. GTFT shows us that forgiveness is key to avoiding destructive cycles of revenge. When dealing with errors or mistakes, it's often better to give a second chance and move forward, rather than getting caught in a loop of retaliation. Pavlov Win, Stay, Lose Shift. Special features. Pavlov WSLS is designed to maximize points, not to be morally good or bad. It considers an interaction a win if both cooperated, or if it defected while the opponent cooperated, it then repeats its previous action. It switches behavior only if it sees a loss, which happens when it cooperates and the opponent defects, or when both defect. This makes Pavlov quick to adjust its behavior to what brings the most points. Pavlov's adaptability works well with morally good partners, allowing for mutual cooperation. When noise is present, it also interacts effectively with strategies that retaliate but don't hold grudges forever. However, when paired with a naive or overly forgiving partner, Pavlov can unintentionally exploit them. If it accidentally defects and gains victory points, it repeats this behavior, even if it means continuing to defect, a morally questionable outcome. What we can learn. Pavlov shows the power of adaptability and how success can come from responding to wins and losses. However, it also highlights the danger of pursuing success without moral consideration. Unintended exploitation can occur, especially when Pavlov repeats defections that weren't intended but brought points. Etherly's strategy. Special features. Etherly's strategy is built on trust. It adjusts its level of forgiveness based on the opponent's overall trustworthiness. The more cooperative the opponent has been, the more likely Etherly is to forgive defections. However, if trust is broken repeatedly, Etherly becomes more cautious, making it a slow but reliable strategy for long-term interactions. What we can learn. Etherly's strategy teaches us the importance of matching forgiveness with trustworthiness. It's about being open to cooperation but cautious enough to avoid being taken advantage of. This balance is key in building sustainable partnerships. Dark Triad. Special features. Dark Triad starts by pretending to be a cooperative partner, building trust early on. However, once it senses that betrayal will be successful, it betrays its opponent to maximize its gain. Dark Triad exploits trust whenever it believes it can benefit, making it highly effective in the short term. While Dark Triad outperformed famous strategies in simpler tournaments, in evolutionary simulations, its population eventually decreased to a small percentage over time. What we can learn, Dark Triad highlights the dangers of exploitation. Though it may lead to short-term success, this strategy shows how manipulation and betrayal come at a long-term cost. Its inability to maintain trust results in eventual isolation. For ethical reasons, I do not publish the code for Dark Triad, as its deceptive nature poses a moral dilemma. Even though it can succeed for a while, trust-based strategies like GTFT are more evolutionarily stable. I hold great respect for the famous tit-for-tat TFT strategy, which has notable Semitic roots. It is, in my opinion, the shortest strategy with a high ethical standard. TFT is more unforgiving than generous tit-for-tat GTFT, but it does forgive. Just as the original principle of an eye for an eye was meant to ensure proportionality rather than endless retaliation. If the opponent cooperates after defecting, TFT does not hold a grudge and cooperates again as if nothing happened. It's a simple yet fair approach. One defection is met with one defection. No more, no less. GTFT, which can be seen as a development of TFT, embodies the spirit of forgiveness that the Jewish figure Jesus preached. GTFT works much better in noisy environments because, unlike TFT, it doesn't retaliate harshly for errors caused by noise. Instead, it grants forgiveness even after defections that might have been unintentional. This makes it more resilient and cooperative in real-life situations where mistakes happen. Atherley's strategy can be viewed as a further development of GTFT because it tailors its forgiveness based on the opponent's trustworthiness. It doesn't use a one-size-fits-all approach to forgiveness, but adjusts according to the level of cooperation shown by the opponent. This correlation with the opponent's reliability makes Atherley's strategy an even more refined approach to cooperation, especially in more complex interactions. Another step forward comes from White's strategy, which logarithmically weights more recent actions of the opponent more heavily. This makes the strategy more adaptive by focusing on the opponent's current behavior, as people or entities can change over time. I found this logarithmic weighting to be a powerful idea and incorporated it into White Christ. From Champion's strategy, which temporarily plays a pure TFT, highlighting its roots in this classical strategy, I borrowed the idea of using a threshold. Instead of relying on random forgiveness probabilities, Champion's strategy sets a concrete threshold. Once the opponent reaches a certain level of cooperation, they are guaranteed forgiveness. This adds predictability and stability to the forgiving mechanism. With White Christ, all of these strong features are combined. It builds upon the strengths of TFT, GTFT, Atherley, White, and Champion, merging adaptability, proportionality, forgiveness, and stability into one robust strategy. My deep respect for the famous Jewish figures Moses and Jesus is reflected in the evolution of these strategies. Moses brought forth the idea of proportional justice with an eye for an eye, which laid the groundwork for TFT. Jesus extended this concept, advocating for greater forgiveness, which we see in GTFT and beyond. These timeless principles continue to influence strategic thinking in game theory, ethics, and real-world applications. To conclude this exploration of the White Christ tournaments, I would like to invite the brightest minds in game theory, like Martin Nowak, Vince Knight, and their teams, to join in refining and improving the White Christ strategy. By optimizing its parameters and possibly adding new features, the strategy could be honed even further, perhaps revealing even more powerful dynamics. At first, I believed the man whom Oscar Wilde reverently called White Christ would have supported a strategy similar to generous tit-for-tat GTFT. After all, GTFT embodies the power of forgiveness, and that seemed aligned with his values. But as I delved deeper, I saw a closer parallel with Etherly's strategy, which I came to view as an evolution of GTFT, tying forgiveness to an opponent's trustworthiness rather than applying it uniformly. Building on that, I realized that the ultimate strategy should be more adaptive, placing greater weight on recent behavior, as people, like opponents in the game, can change over time. And that's how White Christ was born, a more flexible, adaptive variation of Etherly's strategy. When reading the memoirs of the man Oscar Wilde dubbed White Christ, it's clear that this real-life thinker lived according to the very principles that now underpin the strategy named after him. His life was a testament to cooperation, forgiveness, and adaptability, the very traits that define the White Christ strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, today I wish to share with you the story of a remarkable man who has deeply inspired me and whose philosophy forms the foundation of the White Christ strategy I've previously discussed. This man, whom Oscar Wilde once reverently called the White Christ, was not only a great thinker, but also a person of extraordinary kindness and wisdom. Who was this enigmatic figure? Born into a distinguished family, he received an elite education that opened doors to the highest circles of society. Even in his youth, he displayed exceptional intelligence and strength of character. His outstanding performance in the Corps of Pages led to his appointment as the personal chamber page to the Tsar, the very Tsar who would be celebrated as the liberator of the serfs. Yet from an early age he experienced firsthand the harshness that comes with rigid principles like strict an eye for an eye. In his memoirs he recounts an incident. Mikhail, who had the reputation of being a wit, managed to make me cry. "When you're a good boy," he said, "they treat you so," when he passed his big hand over my face downwards. "But when you are naughty, they treat you so," and he passed his hand upwards, rubbing my nose, which already had a marked tendency toward growing in that direction. Tears, which I vainly tried to stop, came into my eyes. The ladies at once took my part, and the good-hearted Marie Alexandrovna took me under her protection. She set me by her side in a high velvet chair with a gilded back, and our people told me afterwards that I very soon put my head in her lap and went to sleep. This episode not only highlights his youthful vulnerability, but also his early confrontation with the sternness of uncompromising retribution. Instead of fostering bitterness, these experiences nurtured in him a profound appreciation for forgiveness and understanding. Reflecting on his relationship with his brother Alexander, he writes, "My brother Alexander had at that time a much more poetical turn of mind. He wrote most romantic stories and began early to make verses, which he did with wonderful facility and in a most musical and easy style. If his mind had not subsequently been taken up by natural history and philosophical studies, he undoubtedly would have become a poet of mark. In those years his favourite resort for finding poetical inspiration was the gently sloping roof underneath our window. This aroused in me a constant desire to tease him. 'There is the poet sitting under the chimney-pot trying to write his verses,' I used to say, and the teasing ended in a fierce scrimmage which brought our sister Helene to a state of despair. But Alexander was so devoid of revengefulness that peace was soon concluded, and we loved each other immensely. Among boys, scrimmage and love seemed to go hand in hand." These words reflect his deep conviction that forgiveness and swift reconciliation are the keys to strong bonds and lasting relationships. As the personal chamber page to the Tsar, he was willing to lay down his life for him, so long as the Tsar upheld the high moral standards and commitment to freeing the serfs that had first earned his loyalty. However, when the Tsar began to waver under pressure from the high nobility, those who wished to continue benefiting from the labor of the serfs, our thinker grew increasingly critical of him. Yet, his respect and trust in the warm-hearted Empress Maria Alexandrovna never faltered, for she remained true to her compassion and humanity, just as she had comforted him when he was a mere 8-year-old boy. Why do I share this with you today? Because the White Christ strategy, inspired by the values of this great man, embodies these very principles. It emphasizes forgiveness, weights recent actions more heavily than past ones, and fosters cooperative and constructive interaction. Thank you for your attention.
In a world of shadows where mistrust prevails, a guiding light emerges, a story sets sail. Born into the halls where the mighty reside, an innocent heart with wisdom inside. He learned that vengeance only feeds the flame, but forgiveness can rewrite the game. White Christ's way, where love outweighs the past. He shows us how to build a peace that lasts. With open hearts we embrace the new day, walking together on White Christ's way. An 8-year-old boy with tears in his eyes, consoled by kindness under royal skies. His brother's friendship sealed with quick amends, a lesson learned that scrimmage often ends. He saw the folly in an eye for an eye, chose to let go, to elevate and fly. White Christ's way, where love outweighs the past. He shows us how to build a peace that lasts. With open hearts we embrace the new day, walking together on White Christ's way. Serving the liberator, he stood by his side. The Tsar's wife, a beacon and guide, against the tide of those who sought control. He held a vision, a brighter goal. He watched as leaders drifted from the truth, yet held on to the innocence of youth. Weighted actions in the present tense, forgiveness his preferred defense. Not by force, but through unity, he forged a path for humanity. White Christ's way, where love outweighs the past. He shows us how to build a peace that lasts. With open hearts we embrace the new day, walking together on White Christ's way. So let us honor the lessons he gave. In every choice, be gentle and brave. A strategy of hearts that won't stray, guided forever by White Christ's way. Honor the lessons he gave. In every choice, be gentle and brave. A strategy of hearts that won't stray, guided forever by White Christ's way. where great minds convene. Axelrod's challenge sparked a visionary scene. From humble beginnings, a new star did rise. A strategy so powerful, ethical and wise. We crafted a path, both noble and strong, doing what's best for others all along. Not once, not twice, but 32 times. We gave them advantage, our purpose aligns. Victorious we stand, with honor in sight. All hail the strategy of light. Against renowned tactics, the celebrated few, we held our ground and broke on through. Forgiving and fair, we played the true game, and one by one, we put them to shame. We crafted a path, both noble and strong, doing what's best for others all along. Not once, not twice, but 32 times. We gave them advantage, our purpose aligns. Victorious we stand, with honor in sight. All hail the strategy of light. When evolutions dance through trials untold, only our strategy remained bold. With minimal tuning, we reached this height. Imagine the peak with experts in sight. Now we call to the sages, the wise and the keen. Refine this beacon, unlock the unseen. Together we'll forge a future so bright, guided by ethics, empowered by light. We crafted a path, both noble and strong, doing what's best for others all along. Not once, not twice, but 32 times. We gave them advantage, our purpose aligns. Victorious we stand, with honor in sight. Join us in the strategy of light. Heroes of wisdom, let our voices unite. Champion this cause, for the future is bright.
Legends came to play. Minds of great intelligence in the grand array. Axelrod's challenged the prisoner's dilemma game. Strategies were forged to seek eternal fame. We gave them grace, 32 steps ahead. Unconditional offers, a path we led. From the shadows of the white Christ light, outperforming all in the fiercest fight. Tit for tat and others they stood in awe, as our strategy defied each flaw. Each flaw, heroic and steadfast, we claim the height. The triumph of the white Christ shines so bright. Choose the noise of turbulent sea. Against the famed we set our strategy. Generous tit for tat, Pavlov in the fray. The Dark Triad emerged to seize the day. One initial gesture, a single stand. White Christ prevailed across the land. From the shadows of the white Christ light, outperforming all in the fiercest fight. Through the chaos and the stormy night, our beacon guided with its radiant light. Heroic and steadfast, we claim the height. The triumph of the white Christ shines so bright. The shines so bright. Evolution's dance, the tides did sway. Others took the lead along the way. Dark Triad had its moment in the sun, but fleeting were their days, the end begun. One by one we faltered, couldn't last. White Christ wisdom held firm and fast. Robust and stable, our legacy secured. An everlasting strategy, refined and pure. Now the field is unified, hearts align. A testament to a design divine. From the shadows of the white Christ light, outperforming all in the fiercest fight. In the end our truth stood strong and right, an evolutionary beacon burning bright. Heroic and steadfast we claim the height. The triumph of the white Christ shines tonight. The triumph of the white Christ shines tonight. Let the echoes of our journey ring. A song of victory proudly sings cinematic tales of our noble quest. The white Christ strategy, proven best.
Yo, turn up the volume. This one's for all the game theorists out there. We made history, now listen up.
We came to win, we played it right. White Christ strategy shining bright. Beat them all in Axelrod's game. Glorious victory, remember the name. Started with a plan, vision and sight. 32 moves, we gave them the light. Unconditional plays, we set the tone. While others schemed, we stood alone. Fifth attack, tried to hold the throne, but white Christ came and took it home. Crafted by minds they couldn't foresee. Our strategy's power, the victory. We came to win, we played it right. White Christ strategy shining bright. Beat them all in Axelrod's game. Glorious victory, remember the name. Turned up the noise, added some heat. Generous tit for tat couldn't compete. Pavlov stepped up with winds they lose shift, but we sailed ahead, gave him the slip. Introduced the Dark Triad's play. They had their moment but couldn't stay. White Christ stood firm, robust and true. Evolution favored us all the way through. Hands up high if you feel this vibe. We changed the game, now watch us thrive. From the bottom to the top we rose. Now everybody knows how the story goes. We came to win, we played it right. White Christ strategy shining bright. Beat them all in Axelrod's game. Glorious victory, remember the name. Spent little time, parameter set. Imagine the heights we haven't reached yet. Calling all experts, join the quest. Optimize the strategy, make it the best. Ethical and strong, we paved the way. Now it's time to seize the day. Others took the lead for a moment in time, but couldn't outlast our design. Evolution's dance, we own the floor. White Christ players forevermore. Robust, stable, we set the pace. Redefine success, change the face. Our glorious victory for all to see. A testament to strategy. So here's to triumph, loud and clear. The White Christ way, without fear. We came to win, and that's the truth. Glorious moments, we brought the proof. We came to win, we played it right. White Christ strategy shining bright. Beat them all in Axelrod's game. Glorious victory, remember the name. Time, parameters set. Imagine the heights we haven't reached yet. Calling all experts, join the quest. Optimize the strategy, make it the best. We came to win, we played it right. White Christ strategy shining bright. Beat them all in Axelrod's game. Glorious victory, remember the name.
To truly understand the power of the White Christ strategy, we need only look at one real-world event where the choice between cooperation and retaliation quite literally determined the fate of humanity. We all owe our lives to a man named Stanislav Petrov. In 1983, Petrov faced a crisis. A false alarm suggested that the United States had launched a nuclear missile at the Soviet Union. His orders were clear: respond according to a tit-for-tat strategy, retaliate immediately. If he had followed protocol, a nuclear apocalypse would have ensued, and none of us would be here today. Had Petrov followed a generous tit-for-tat strategy, even with a 33% chance of forgiveness, there's still a 67% chance that he would have recommended a retaliatory strike, leading to the end of the world as we know it. If he had employed Pavlov win-stay-lose shift, he would have interpreted the supposed American attack as a loss, prompting him to switch from peaceful behavior to an aggressive one. Again, we would not be here. But if Petrov had applied Etherly's strategy, he would have considered the Americans about 13,000 days of non-aggression. In that light, one sudden signal of a missile launch would seem highly improbable. However, even Etherly's approach might have led to uncertainty about whether to respond. There's still a minimal chance that retaliation might have been seen as necessary. Petrov's thought process, however, was even more nuanced. He reasoned that if the US had truly intended to start a nuclear war, they wouldn't launch just one missile. This cautious, measured reasoning reflects the very essence of the White Christ strategy. Like Petrov, White Christ assesses the broader picture. Only when multiple defections cross a defined threshold, when a clear pattern of betrayal is evident, does it choose to retaliate. Until then, it acts with restraint and wisdom, placing trust in cooperation. Petrov didn't just save lives that day, he provided a living demonstration of the principles behind the White Christ strategy. This strategy isn't just about game theory or academic models, it's about the very real life-saving power of measured, thoughtful decision-making in the face of potential catastrophe. White Christ stands as a beacon of how we should act, not with blind vengeance, but with the wisdom to weigh the long-term behavior of our partners and trust in the value of peace.